Hi. Hello. Hello. You want to say hi? Hi, guys. So I last saw you in April and I said that I would check in again. But shit has been happening in the world, right? We all know this. And I have been trying to find some sanity in a situation that feels just so unreal because like I'm in my day to day, right? I'm in my day to day trying to just work and go to the grocery store and take care of cats and, you know, read books and just exist and function. And then I'm seeing just this other parallel universe of like what is happening in our country, what is happening abroad, dealing with, you know, just all of these changes and shifts that are coming at us so quickly and so fast. And the intent of it is to leave you in shock, is to leave you hopeless, is to leave you silent. And I think what I have decided today is I want to choose some joy and to try to remind myself what that feels like. Because when I am able to have that full cup, when I'm able to function, I am better equipped to show other people compassion, to have humanity, and to not be numb. Because I was sitting in my car crying like a month ago, and because I feel so much all the time. Like I said, like I feel just this double universe just exists next to me, where I'm just like, this is the path that I'm currently on, but this is all of the other paths that other people are going on. And like, it hurts so much. And it also makes me so mad. And it also makes me so incredibly grateful for the life that I do have, even if I'm not in a phase that I want to be in right now. And even though I have my own struggles and my own fears, like I'm still incredibly grateful for what I do have and the capacity to have like food in my refrigerator and, lots of books to read and a husband who I adore and, even cats that are cute and healthy. And it's just something that I think I want to try to continue to tell my story. And starting from the beginning, like I said, would at least be a way to get us a little escape for a minute. Um, so I want to tell you about my childhood, which feels really weird because I don't think I talk about it very often. But I decided, I was in the car, my husband was working, he was driving, and I just went along and I decided to write down the main things that I think influenced me as a kid and kid like 0 to 10. And I actually encourage you to do this because I feel like there's something fascinating about the fact that, like, when you're little and you have the privilege of having like a pretty good childhood, you realize what a good childhood it was, even though, like, you've got your own little things. But you had these pockets of joy and these moments of just like, this was where, in those home videos, like, that was where I was me. That's where I was like, I don't know, the most free, the most present in the moment. And thinking about those moments, like I cried in the car. I cry a lot recently. I've had a lot of tears. I've always been a crier, but I think when I have a lot of emotions at one time, whether they be positive or negative or just intense, I just cry. So, yeah, I want to share the little list that I have and share a little context for you, just so you can kind of see maybe what drove me as a little kid and what inspired me. And maybe it's just your escape for a minute, or maybe it'll inspire you to look at what that childlike joy was before the world got to you. Because I think the world right now is trying to get to a lot of people, and I won't give up my joy if I can help it. So I first want to start with where I'm from. So I am from a city outside of Kansas City on the Kansas side, and I grew up there my whole life. I grew up with my mom and my dad and a baby sister. She is a couple years younger than me, and I love my family. But it was really interesting, I think, because I have family, friends, or even people that I've met throughout my life where you kind of have this contrast of either you grew up with a lot of family around or you grew up with just like your nuclear family. And it's interesting to have grown up with just kind of like my nuclear family, like geographically. I just had like my parents and my sister, and then my one set of grandparents was close by, and then everybody else lived across the US. And so, growing up without this just like massive community of family was interesting because we just had like the four of us a lot of the time. We just got to exist in this little bubble in this house in the suburbs. And I would say that I had a pretty good childhood, especially that like 0 to 10 was pretty great. And I know what a privilege that is. I know what a privilege that is. But I think when I was little, I just felt like, oh, well, doesn't everybody have this? You know, like I was like, oh, like the things I wrote down here was like parks, because we went to the park a lot. I had a lot of parks in my area. Um, we used to walk and bike to the park. I wrote down bikes because the four of us would bike places. Like we would bike to an ice cream shop nearby, or to like, there was like the pool in the neighborhood and stuff like that. And so we would bike or walk, or even like my mom had a little, that wagon with that you put kids in. My mom would take the wagon, and I have just all these memories of being outside so much, especially at that young age. And it's funny how much I forgot about it as I got older. And so thinking about it in the car, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I spent so much time outside. And like even the idea of playing in the rain. So, like, if you're from the Midwest, the summers, we get these like flash storms where a lot of rain will come down at one time and then it'll kind of go away. And so you can have like this really hot, sunny day, and then like do nada out of nowhere. So my Portuguese, do nada is like my favorite. Um, it'll just flash flood, not flash flood, just like quickly rain. And if there was no lightning or thunder, I would play in the rain with my sister. And there's like home videos of us like singing and dancing in the front driveway in the rain. And and I think I still get this childlike joy when I see the rain, but it's so funny to think about this nothing else matters, like as that child, like that childhood pocket where it's like everything's okay, and the rain is here, but it's warm rain and we can take showers afterwards. And, even playing in the snow when I was little in the summer, in the winter time, like flipping the other side, it was like going sledding. And then my mom would give us like hot chocolate. And so there was just always this presence of getting outside and being there. And I don't do it as often now, which is crazy because I think there was a lot of years where I was just so focused on like school and work and being overstimulated, and it just felt like too much. And so I'm just now starting to get back into like walking to parks and like walking outside and touching trees. And my mom loves talking to trees, so I talk to trees too, which is very hippie of me, but I love it. And so those were the pieces that I had there. It was like parks, bikes, playing in the rain, and tomatoes in the garden. I put that down too. Um, the tomatoes in the garden was when like my dad has a garden on the side of the house and he grows herbs, and every year he would grow a couple different things. But he grew tomatoes a lot of my childhood, and he'd come home from work and I would go out in the garden with him and we would pick tomatoes. And if they weren't ready, it'd be really hard for me to not pick them, but we would pick them, and then I would just eat them with salt. And there's such a piece there, like, do you ever have like a fruit or vegetable that if you eat it fresh, it's just like throws you back into I it like throws you back into like this moment of joy of like coming home from school and picking a tomato. There was like one year where I lived really close to my school so I could walk. Every other year I lived a little further away. And I'd walk and I would grab a tomato, go inside and cut it up and put some salt on it, just eat it. So that was another piece. And then I think the next was particularly around like road trips and Jeeps. So my mom has had a Jeep my whole life. We had one Jeep and then we had to change it again when I was, or I think it was maybe around that 10 mark. But I remember driving in the Jeep and it was so fun because we would put the windows down and we would sing at the top of our lungs. And at the time, I was big, like, I think it was like Martina McBride and Kelly Clarkson and who else? When I was itty bitty, like Janet Jackson, even sometimes, which is funny now, like knowing the lyrics of that. I was like, well, what? But I would have these, these different musics and we would just sing and sing. And it was usually like my sister and my mom. And that was like one car related thing. But then the other was road trips. And these road trips were like the early 2000s. And my family started doing road trips to different parts of the US. And so we would drive from like Kansas to Colorado and then we'd go down to Arizona and then through New Mexico and then back up, I think through like Oklahoma. And we would like change that loop or we would also go east because I have family in both directions. And I remember these road trips because, especially the Southwest, I have these flashes of going through these places that looked so different than where I was from. And you could see this like desert, and then you'd see like the plateaus. And I would just daydream. I would just daydream. And we got dream catchers from New Mexico, I think, when I was little. And I remember this one road trip where we had the dream catcher hung up in the car above our heads because I would sleep in the car a lot. I can still sleep in the car like crazy. And it was such an incredible moment. I loved being in the car. I still get car sick sometimes, and so I couldn't read or anything. I had to like either stare out the window or we were very lucky we had a little TV that you could strap in the back and it was with VHS. And so you had this massive box that played the VHS and you plugged it in and then you had to find a way. It was like a wall plug in into the car and I don't even know how that worked. But like my dad's car, we were able to rig it where we had like the little TV, maybe the size of like an airplane TV now, and our VHSs. And we would watch the the movies and that had to be like really high up because if it was up then my sister and I would like sit in the back and watch. And the movies were always different, but we would have to pick like, okay, what are we going to take on this road trip? And what did we want to do? I don't know. I feel like the thought hopping is just because when you think about your childhood and you get these flashes and you think about these little moments of joy, these little pockets, these little flashes. And I want to make sure that like my life feels that way, where like every little pocket you get like a little something good, a little something sweet. But I think I had more of them as a child, obviously because those worries aren't always there. Or I was really privileged in the way that like I didn't have too many. And I know that a lot of kids don't always get that. And so I think that's given me an incredible amount of gratitude. And so those were the flashes. That was the first part of the list. So I want you to put in the comments what were what were those things that flashed in your mind when you first thinked about when you first thought about that kind of stuff. Where like I think mine was just like small town, suburb, like mom, dad, sister with, you know, outdoor spaces and gardens. I think it's interesting because you get like that formed my reality for a long time. And it let me see how simple that childhood joy can be, like how little you need. Like I literally, I can't take a smile off my face. I'm just like, yeah, a fresh tomato and a walk in the park. And we got kittens when my sister turned 5. And so we had kittens too, and it's just like these, I'm like, what, that those are the things that still bring me joy. Those are still the things I'm like, okay, this is what was in my childhood that brought me such joy. What are those little things that I can bring back? What are those things that I can choose to find that again? And so that was the first spot. And then the next spot was when I started thinking about the elements. Like I wrote down music, and I wrote down water, and I wrote down storytelling, and I wrote down animals. And those were less like specific flashes or specific moments, and they were more the things that I was so deeply drawn to as a child. Music was the singing in the Jeep, was singing in the car. I was in a choir as a child, playing in the backyard with my sister and singing songs. And there's like this there's this home video that my parents always tell the story about, where like I was in the playroom in our house and I was singing, I think it was Just Around the River Bend from Pocahontas. It was my favorite movie as a child. And like obviously the history of the movie Pocahontas, like of actual the real Pocahontas and the Disney Pocahontas, very different things. But there was like that movie in particular, there was just like this connection to nature and rivers and animals and following the wind and listening to your heart and choosing compassion. And I was just obsessed with it. I loved it as a child. And I was dancing to Just Around the River Bend. And I'm singing and I'm dancing and it's ridiculous. And my sister can even imitate the dance move. It was like this, like swirl fingers and throw hands up. And I'm like, I look back at it and I remember watching it as a teenager and I was like, oh my God, please no. And now I watch it. I'm like, oh my God, there she is. Like this girl who was so unafraid of looking silly or, being too much. I was just singing and dancing and playing with my sister. And I think home videos are such a privilege because I get to watch them back and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that's who she was. And the videos I see, like that was one where like I was always in the playroom singing mostly Disney songs. And then the other flash is a jacuzzi. Now this sounds so like, oh my God, I had a hot tub when I was a kid. But like, no, this house was built in the 70s and the jacuzzi was kind of broken. And so it didn't heat up correctly. And it was like a hot tub from the 70s. It was this tiny little hot tub in our house and it was lukewarm water. And so it was like just basically like a baby pool. And I was in there all the time. Like I swam in that jacuzzi. I don't even know how many home videos there are of me in the jacuzzi, also singing and playing and being a dolphin and diving up and down and floating at the top of the water and just existing in time until my fingers got pruny. And so those are the two that I first think of, for like this constant presence of water, of everything stood still, and using like having CDs playing in the background. I still love those things. But when you think about jacuzzis or pools now, it sucks as an adult, because especially as a woman, because I think like, oh God, which bikini is going to make me look better, or did I shave, which I'm still trying to figure out. Like body hair is like, do I care, do I actually care, or is it just society that makes me care? But either way, that presence of that, like, oh my God, is my body ready for that, or is it going to be right, or is somebody going to look at me funny, or do I look, it's about the presence of like how I'm perceived, and not about the little girl in the jacuzzi who would literally just like throw on the most baggy old whole suit. Like I had a couple of suits where like they were hand-me-downs, because classic. I didn't care. I could not care less. I cared about how many Barbies I could put in the hot tub with me. And I think as we get older, we don't think so much about the being in the water and the playing or the singing and the dancing. It's like, okay, am I singing on pitch? Am I doing the right move? Should I be doing this right now? Does my body look okay? There's just this learned behavior of self-policing, and I'm so over it. I'm I'm so over it. I say that, and I'm not saying that that means that like all of a sudden I no longer care. But I think that has been one of my big things after turning 30 was like, okay, how can we undo these narratives? How can we be like, okay, what actually brings you joy and what do you actually care about? And I love music and I love singing and I've been told I sing pretty well, so I guess that's nice. But I think the dancing I've gotten away from. And so like I'm like, okay, I want to get back into water. I want to get back into just being in connection with something that like I love diving under the water and just floating there. And I don't do it very much anymore. So I'm like, okay, we're going to try to get into water. Good thing it's summertime and it's hot as hell. Maybe I can I need to go somewhere with water. I haven't even gone this summer yet. But yeah, I want to find that again. And the singing, I'm getting better. I'm putting on more music from when I was younger and singing more. And when we drive in the car, I try to like do that more. I don't know, this is my next part in the comments. If you want to add whether like two or three things that you loved as a kid that maybe you still love now, but that as you got older, you did less because of some sort of learned judgment or some learned policing of yourself that you want to go back to. Because I think if it's something that still brings you joy, something that still serves you, I am doing my very best to find it again and to choose that again. Because I think that is a thing, is bringing back that compassion, that self-love, that joy to be able to give it to other people. So those were the two big ones. And then I had storytelling and animals, and they're my last two things, I guess, because I'm checking the time. You guys, if you're still here, I would love you to post. If you can do emojis, I want you to post either a strawberry or a watermelon or both if you're still here. So you can write, if you can't do the emojis, you can write strawberry or write watermelon or something. But yeah, so the last two pieces are the storytelling and the animals. So the storytelling, I loved talking to people as a kid and I loved learning different perspectives. So they always talk about, my mom tells the story that like when I was little, I would be with my parents and then I started talking when I was really young. I think I was like 18 months old or something. And so by 2, I was talking, little kid talk, but still I was talking. And I would just like walk up to people and be like, hi, I'm Anne. What's your name? And like want to know their story. And it was just came from this like childhood like curiosity of like, ooh, who are you? What's your story? What's your tale? And I think I still do it now, but I think as I've done more online, I think I've been more curious, but it's because I can do it on my phone. Like I don't have to like go up to people, and that confidence and that like curiosity was there. And the storytelling was partially from that of like just wanting to know other people's lives and like if people had a different accent or someone had like if they were from a different country or something. I always had so many questions or like I just wanted them to play with me. I wanted to be friends with everybody. And I also wrote down here, I wrote down Pocahontas, Robin Hood, and Spirit. And I think those are the 3 movies that I thought of the quickest when I was writing this list in the car. So Pocahontas, we know, was like, it was just this young girl who listened to the wind and ran with no shoes and wanted to connect people and wanted to find a better future for others. And I didn't get that, as a child. I wasn't like, oh yes, the profound action of that and the need for this. But it was like, it was just something I gravitated towards, was this story of we're different, but we're the same. And Robin Hood, I would say, would be similar. The Fox Robin Hood, not like the old one and not like a new one. I love the Disney cartoon Fox Robin Hood with Maid Marian and the chicken who was the assistant for Maid Marian, not the assistant, but like her companion, with her Scottish accent and the songs and I still can quote that movie. It's very funny to me the amount of times I watched that movie. And the last one was Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. And I cry every time. Like my husband hasn't even watched that movie because sometimes I'm just not equipped to watch it. But it's so good and like the soundtrack gives me chills, and this horse like trying to find his way home and having his mind changed and his heart grown from something bigger than him. And so I think now, looking at that as an adult, it doesn't surprise me that those three movies are movies that came to mind the fastest from like cartoons from when I was younger. And then I had Man from Snowy River is the first like people movie that it was my favorite. It's been one of my favorite movies forever. If you've never seen Man from Snowy River, it's literally about like an Australian cowboy who lives in the mountains, and then he has to like earn like to become a man, but not like a macho man. It was just like, I don't even know. You have to watch the trailer. It's like a 1980s. It was made before I was born, but somehow it ended up in my repertoire and I love it. And the soundtrack is also like amazing. But that was also, it was just like a different world. It was a different time period. It really got me interested in like period films of like movies from the past, from different countries, from different um, things, but with animals in it. Because obviously, like Pocahontas, Robin Hood, Spirit, Man from Snowy River, they're all animal, very animal based, very finding yourself based, very knowing who you are based. And I think the storytelling of that and the wanting to be willing to make these big leaps, or life giving you big leaps and then growing from them and still finding your truth and finding your purpose and falling in love with the journey. It's so funny to me because like you'll hear this in future videos because I'll tell more of my life, but I've had some things happen to me and I've had other things that I've chosen, big leaps that I've taken from what I think my path would have been if I had just stayed in the suburbs, if I had just stayed in this perfect little world of tomatoes and parks and bikes. It would have been a lot less stressful, but I think I wouldn't be the woman that I am if I had stayed there. And I think that storytelling, that knowing that there was something else out there was amazing and fascinating. And I guess the last one was with the animals that I had written down. I wrote down horse books, Dusty, which is a horse name, and mama babies of stuffed animals. So I had horse books. I still have them. I have these encyclopedia books of horse breeds. I loved reading them as a child. Like you could have like a book where like people were reading Harry Potter. I was busy reading about Rocky Mountain horses and Frisians and Percherons and the benefits of quarter horses and what they could do, and Exmoor ponies. And it's just like I couldn't get enough. I had to know about all the horse breeds and all that they could do. And I did that with dogs too later on. And I just wanted to know anything and everything about that stuff. And Dusty was the first horse that I rode as a child. He was like this old horse, and I couldn't even ride him on my own. Like it was the sit on the top, and like your parents would walk the horse for you. But I felt so excited and so joyful being around horses. I always have. And that would lead me into another journey that you'll probably hear about soon, horse related. But I did. I loved horses. I loved these. I will stop and talk to any cat, any dog. If I see a horse in the street, I will stop. I love cows and all these animals. And I would just be like, I will stop and I will talk to them. And I would rather be around animals than people, I think a lot, which is surprising as since like I love talking with people and I love being around them and learning their stories. But I think I also like my battery will drop quickly. But if I'm around an animal, like I'm okay. It gets better. So I've got that piece. And then the last is the mama baby. Peluche is what I wrote down, which is funny. The stuffed animals. So, you know, when you have stuffed animals as a kid, if you had one, you might have a favorite. I had lots of stuffed animals, but I had to have, if there was an option to have a big version and a little version, I had to do it. I had a jumbo dolphin and a baby dolphin. I had a big horse and a little horse, like a mini version. I had like stuffed animals that were dogs, and then they had their puppies, and the magnet of the puppy scarf would like stick to the tongue of the mom's tongue. And like I loved having the mamas and babies. Like I loved the idea of like having them to care for. And I wanted to be a vet when I was little, and that was the whole thing. And so I don't even know what this was other than wanting to tell some stories and to get a little bit into what brought me so much joy as a kid, and hoping that it would give you a little joy or give you a little energy to want to write some down. So please do, if you want to share some of the things that brought you joy, maybe your favorite animal or that nerdy thing that you learned way too much about, or I don't know. Let's try to find that childhood joy if we can, because we know that the world is what it is right now, and I know that my battery will drain so quickly now. And sometimes I can't even function other than just make sure that I have water and some food, and I hug the love of my life, and I pet my cats, and that's about as good as I can get some days. And so the fact that I was feeling up for some storytelling and trying to remind myself of the things that bring me joy, especially from that pocket, it just felt really relevant, and I wanted to do that with you. So I hope you're having an amazing day. Like I said, if you got all the way here, you can post a tomato or a tomato. You know what? You can add a tomato. If you want to add a tomato, that means you got all the way to the end. So if you got a strawberry or a watermelon and now a tomato. I don't know why I'm doing this, and if anybody even does it, I'll be impressed. But yeah, I hope you're having a good day. I'm thinking of you. I am sending you good energy, and I will see you next time for the next strange chunk of time. Maybe we'll talk about my tweens, and we can all have a little bonding moment over how strange that is, that time period. I'll see you soon. Bye.